皆さんこんにちは。ファンドアナリストの篠田翔子です。本日はポートフォリオマネージャーのプラシャント・コタリさんをお招きしてiTrustインド株式についてたっぷりとお話を伺ってまいります。前回の対談から約2年が経ちました。当時インドは世界でも最も注目される市場の一つでした。一方で最近は米国や日本と比べますとやや勢いが落ち着いてきたと感じる投資家の皆さんもいらっしゃると思われます。今のインド株式市場で一体何が起きているのでしょうか。
Yeah, so the simplest way to describe India today is that it has moved from a period of very high optimism to a period of consolidation. And we saw very strong returns like after COVID, if you look at it, Indian markets almost doubled in the next 4 years. And after that, now we are seeing that that valuation premium, which maybe got expanded too much, and the earnings growth, which is probably too high to sustain, all of that is normalizing now. Even the foreign capital inflows were very strong, and that is also actually started going out now. So all of that is resulting into a situation where the markets are consolidating a bit. So I'll not term it as any kind of a big correction. I would see it more as a period of consolidation and digestion. I mean, it's like going on a trek in the Himalayas, for example. Like if you go there, then obviously you will climb up, but then you will take a pause, you will take a rest, and then you will climb up again. So it's more of a pause that I see today, because the fundamentals, the underlying story of India, I think it is still very solid. The economy is still doing very well. The GDP is growing at more than 6%. Earnings are growing at double digits, maybe even accelerating now. And maybe at some point of time, the foreign investors will start coming back into the market. So hopefully this is just a temporary phase in this very long secular bull market.
I see. Do you have an image of that pause, the length of the pause? How long it will take?
How long it will take. Right. So yeah, if you think about it, the markets went up for like 4 years almost consistently. They were up more than 20% every year along with earnings growth. And now what we are seeing in the last 15-18 months, the markets are kind of consolidating. And now it seems actually a very interesting phase because the valuations have corrected. If you see in some of the slides that we show here, that the valuations are actually trading at much lower premium versus what they used to. So this is where we are showing the India market premium versus the rest of the world. It actually went to a high level during 20 to 23 time periods, but now it has come back to like 5-10% premium only. So the valuations are looking interesting. If you look at earnings growth, it is actually starting to accelerate now. From about 19% levels last couple of years, it should go up to like 16-15%. So that is looking better. And other factor then is all about how the global capital can starts thinking about India, because so far in the last kind of 1 year or so, they have been very fascinated about AI trade, and India is kind of a different market. It does not offer you AI opportunities. So as and when that euphoria maybe comes to an end, then there will be more attraction towards India, and that is when India should start performing better.
今回の資料で印象的だったのは海外投資家が、売り越しに転じる中でもインド国内の個人投資家が積み立て投資を続けていた点です。現在のインド市場において国内投資家の存在感が高まっていることをどのようにご覧になっていますか？
Yeah, so what we are seeing very clearly in the last couple of years is that the foreign investors have been selling the Indian equities. But on the other side of the trade, obviously there has to be a buyer for a seller, and the buyer has been the Indian retail investors. So Indian retail investors have been putting money into what we call as the systematic investment plans, SIPs, into the mutual funds of India. And so this is very small amounts, but aggregating to very large numbers. So there are like 100 million SIP accounts today, and putting in like $30 every month, and that is giving you an amount of like $3 billion plus every month, which is coming into the equity market. So you're talking about like a $40 billion annual inflow just from this one kind of a vehicle alone, right? So obviously that is providing a good flow to the market. It's also providing a good exit route for these foreign investors. So that is one angle. The other angle is that because of this large SIP flow, because mutual funds are always having cash in India, they're always looking for new and new opportunities. And therefore it's easy for, let's say, private equity funds to sell their stakes also. And because of that, private equity funds are putting money into, let's say, unlisted large companies. And because that has become easier, it's again kind of pulling the next level, which is the venture capital and the angel investors. So they are also becoming more and more confident of giving funding to the startups in India, knowing that the ultimate exit in the public markets is becoming easier. So while what we see on the face, it's just the surface, which is that Indian retail investors are putting money into large liquid companies in India, but ultimately it is creating a pull down to the bottom, kind of down to the new age startups also in India.
But how did that movement happen? Is there any government-sponsored plans for the retail investors, or how did that happen?
So that's the other interesting bit. See, in many markets, like in UK, we have the ISA scheme. In Japan, we have the NISA scheme. And there is some government angle, there is some tax angle behind that, because of which the investors go towards such schemes of kind of monthly investing into equities. In India, interestingly, it has been driven simply by the industry. There's no government support on it. It's the industry who came together and said, we have to campaign in an aggregated way. And then they started saying that mutual funds is the right investment, and SIP is the right way to invest into them. And that was a great marketing kind of a campaign which was launched by all the mutual funds together. And that is how the Indian retail investors have been educated of that this is the right way, because then you're actually buying through the cycle, you're taking advantage of all the dips which happen in the market. So then your average cost of buying an investment obviously reduces, which improves your returns. And that phenomena has got so much inculcated in their minds that they are simply not deviating away from that. I mean, we have seen a lot of volatility in these last 5-7 years, but every month, almost every month, that SIP flow remains very consistent.
Oh, that's interesting. So I assume that the investors are quite young in their age?
So Indian, if you think about it, who saves in India? I mean, obviously people in their 20s or maybe in their kind of early 30s, they're just starting their jobs. So they don't have much of savings, right? So it is actually the people in their late 30s or 40s or 50s who are actually saving money. So the main cohort of people who are putting these SIPs is actually the older people. But what is starting to happen, seeing the success of these older generation, is that young people are trying to start their SIPs much sooner. So people are getting into their jobs, earning their first paycheck, and then they're saying, okay, I need to put in, even if it is just 1,000 rupees, which is like $10, I need to be putting in something towards my long-term income plans, long-term retirement plans.
I see. That's interesting. Thank you. 今の世界の株式市場は数年前と比べてかなり選別色が強くなっているように感じます。そうした環境の変化によって投資機会の探し方というのはどのように変わりましたか？
Sure. Okay. So maybe if you go back a few years, you could think of the Indian market as a big buffet. You can eat whatever you like and you will be happy. Okay. But now I think the market has changed to what maybe in Japan you will call it the kaiseki meal. Right, where you will go and maybe select few things, and only those select few is what will actually be making you feel fulfilled. Okay, and I think the Indian markets are exhibiting similar characteristics, where it is not like you can buy anything in the market. You have to be selective. But if you buy the right stocks, if you buy good quality companies which are reasonably cheap, then you will actually end up making good returns out of that. So it's a very selective market, which means it is a great place to be for an active investor. People who can actually figure out which are the right business models, who have the right competitive edge, who has the right management, who has the right governance practices, where the valuations are actually reasonable. So if somebody can actually figure out all of those things, it becomes a very interesting market for people like them.
I see. 資料の中でフォーレンエンジェルス、打天使という表現を使われていたのが大変印象的でした。現在どのような企業がそのカテゴリーに入り始めているのでしょうか？
Sure. Okay. So with the Indian markets having not given much returns over the last couple of years, we thought it would be interesting to showcase how attractive some opportunities in India have become. And one very simplistic way we thought was to show you how many quality stocks have become cheap. So if you were to think about India, I mean, obviously large market, there are about 600 companies, more than $1 billion market cap. If you were to filter for companies which have fallen at least a third from their peak level, so they have corrected enough, right? And then if you were to filter again for companies having at least 15% return on their equity, which means they are very high quality because they're generating such high returns. So if you were to filter for those two things, you actually end up with more than 100 names. So there are 100 names in India which have fallen at least a third and have more than 15% returns, which means high quality and attractive valuations. So that's the kind of opportunity set that we have today because of this consolidation that we've seen in the market. And that's why we are calling it as a fallen angels theme. There are many interesting ideas out there. One example we have is, for example, Ashok Leyland. Now that's the second largest truck manufacturing company in India. And that's a very interesting market because it's a duopoly. There are only two players. And this company has actually been gaining market share over the first player. And they generate excellent margins, excellent cash flows, and now trading also very cheap because of this correction.
Do you have any other sectors that you're watching in terms of valuation? Has anything changed in terms of valuation?
Yeah, so there are some other pockets which have become maybe more interesting. One sector would be the consumer discretionary sector.
Okay.
Because of certain amount of pessimism in India, and also because some of those stocks actually became very rich earlier. Now they have corrected meaningfully, and therefore the stocks are looking more interesting now. I mean, see, our style is that we would look for quality stocks when they become cheap. Okay, so maybe they're always quality businesses, but they're just too expensive for us to buy into. But now that they have become cheap, they become more interesting for us to discover and put money into.
Okay, thank you. またさらに興味深かったのは、投資テーマがテクノロジーだけにとどまっていないという点です。ヘルスケア、金融、プレミアム消費、さらには AI 関連インフラまで含まれています。こうした幅広いテーマは現在のインド経済の変化をどのように表しているのでしょうか。
Sure, that's a very interesting question. Yeah, I mean, the way Indian economy is today obviously is not the way it was 10 years back or 20 years back, right? And that means that as the economy is evolving, we also have to evolve in terms of how we shape the portfolio. The portfolio has to somewhere showcase what the future potential of India is, right? So these opportunities that you mentioned, maybe I'll just touch upon a few of them just to help you understand. For example, this first opportunity about financialization of savings. Now, what is becoming very clear to us is that in India, the population of the rich is expanding very quickly. Okay, and the number of rich people in India are supposed to grow like 8-fold in the next 25 years. Okay, and because India is an unequal society, so a lot of people at the top control a large amount of household wealth and savings. So like what we show in this slide, like top 1% of the households actually control 70% of India's wealth. Okay, which means that if you were to cater to them, then you have a very interesting business model. Obviously, these people are aspiring to have wealth managers to manage their wealth. And that is where this company 361 comes into play. They are the largest wealth manager in India. Okay, and they're having like $40 billion plus assets under management, which you might think is not too much because if you were to compare with, let's say, Nomura of Japan, Nomura has like $1 trillion, right? So while the GDP size is actually not very different, Japan and India are very similar in terms of economic size. But Nomura is like 50 times bigger than what 361 is, right? So that shows also the potential of where 361 could go. And obviously, it will keep on compounding because of this great potential that Indian rich class offers. So that is one example. The other theme that we are talking about is healthcare. So healthcare in India is interesting because the quality of healthcare is actually not great. The number of beds in India and the number of quality beds in India is pretty low. Okay, I mean, if you think about it, the company that we are mentioning here, Max Healthcare, they are the second largest hospital chain in India with about 5,000 beds. Now think about the population of India and think about this chain of only 5,000. I mean, even again coming back to Japan, Tokushikai, right? It has 13,000 beds. Okay, with a much smaller population that Japan has. So that again shows you the potential that a company like Max has, because people are indeed moving away from, let's say, unorganized healthcare into more of these high quality private hospitals like Max. And Max is like one of the best operators that we have found. Highest margins, highest returns, very, very efficient in terms of how they manage healthcare, and patient outcomes are also great. So these are very interesting opportunities that we're able to see because of the way India is shaping up.
I see. Are the players changing over the past decade or so, especially in the finance industry?
Okay, so one interesting thing which happens in India is that incumbents actually last far longer than what they do in other markets. So if you were to think about who was the largest wealth manager 10 years back, it was 361. Okay, who was the second largest hospital chain in India? It was Max. Okay, so who was the second largest truck manufacturer in India? It was still Ashok Leyland. So the leadership actually remains far longer than what it does in other markets. So somehow that incumbency advantage, because of the way they have their branding, they have their distribution, they have that customer connect, and they obviously keep on evolving with the times. Because of that, the leadership actually sustains far longer, and that actually is a great news for investors, because then they can invest in a company and then do not worry about it, right? Because then they can compound the returns in the same company for a very long period of time.
That's very interesting. Thank you. 現在世界の株式市場は AI の影響を非常に強く受けています。そうした環境の中でインドはグローバルな AI の流れ、そうした中でどのような役割を担っていくとお考えになりますか？
Sure. So I would say there are two angles to that. One is that India has always been very strong in terms of implementing technologies for the rest of the world. So there are these Indian IT services companies, for the last 25 years, whenever any new technology has come, and the enterprises needed to implement that, it's the Indian engineers who would go there and actually implement it, right? Whether it is if you go back to the Y2K problem that we had at the beginning of the century, then we had Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, Cloud. In every such phase, it's the Indian tech services companies who have come and helped the enterprise. I think the same thing would play out with AI also. Whenever global enterprises want AI to be implemented at large scale, it's again these Indian companies which would help them. So that's the first angle, I would say. The second angle is actually more about how India actually absorbs this technology to become more productive, right? Because obviously it's a new technology and which can help you become much more efficient. So I think we have to again go back and look at how other technologies actually transform the way India functions. I mean, it is not like mobile was invented in India. It is not like internet was invented in India, right? It's not like telecom was invented in India. But still, India managed to create an IT industry using these technologies, right? And I think the similar thing will play out here, that India will absorb this technology. It will not be the enabler of the technology. I mean, just like Korea, Japan, or Taiwan are, they're enabling this technology. But ultimately, what you need is you need a large scale, which is what India offers in terms of the economy size and the population. And then you obviously need policies around that to actually absorb this technology. And interestingly, India has actually done that in the past. If you were to think about the payment interface which India made, UPI, which is like such a great innovation, it's handling more than half of global instant payments today. Okay, India also made the unique identity card for all its citizens. So again, these things were not invented in India, but were absorbed by India, which made the economy much more efficient. It helped the corporates to create businesses on top of these digital infrastructure that government created. So similar thing will play out with AI also. Government already has an AI mission by which they are providing cheap compute to many of the enterprises, and they're also creating their own model. They're also creating their kind of different Indian language models. So all of that infrastructure would ultimately help Indian businesses or Indian startups to create some new opportunities on top of that.
I see. 投資家の方々の中にはフィジカル AI ですね、ロボティクスと AI の融合によってインドの伝統的な労働力優位性が将来的に弱まるのではないかと懸念する声もあります。一方で今回の資料ではむしろ逆の見方をされています。なぜそうした未来においてもインドの労働力や人的資本は依然として大きな強みであり続けるとお考えになるのでしょうか。
Sure. So maybe a couple of points on that. One is that India's advantage is no longer just the cheap cost of labor that it provides. Okay, I mean that you could find in many other, maybe even poorer countries. Let's say if you got to go to Africa or whatever, right? But what India is providing is actually a large scale of a very skilled workforce. Okay, so there are like about 2.5 million STEM graduates which come out of Indian universities every year. And these are skilled in kind of the latest technologies out there, right? And as AI is evolving, these people are also evolving in terms of their talent. And so this is what will help them actually serve the global enterprises in a much better way. Okay. The second thing also to your question on the physical AI, right? The I would say very commonsensical approach, if you have to think about it, is if a humanoid comes, it will obviously come with its own cost of operation. Who would it replace first? Would it be a labor in India earning like $3,000 a year? Would it be replaced first? Or would it be a worker working in US or Europe, making $50,000 or $100,000 could be replaced first? I mean, the answer is very simple, right? It would be the developed markets where this threat would be much more immediate. Exactly. Rather than India, maybe after 10 years, and we're showing this in the projections that we got, that maybe after 10 years is when the cost of a humanoid starts becoming equivalent to an Indian labor cost. But it's not happening anytime soon, right? So that's the second point. And finally, the third thing to note is that all of these technologies, you have to think about who is the beneficiary, right? The first beneficiaries are always the creators of the technology because they end up earning royalty income on that, I would say. I mean, so whether it is the chip companies of Taiwan or Korea or semiconductor companies or like the likes of NVIDIA in US, they obviously earn the royalty because they have created the technology. Right. But the ultimate beneficiary of these technologies would be the ones who actually absorb that, right? And that is where I think India would actually stand out when it comes to that. Obviously, we are some time away from that, but whenever it happens, then India would actually stand out.
I see. Thank you. そう、インドというと今でも IT アウトソーシングを思い浮かべる人が多いと思います。一方で実際の現場ではどのように AI 関連の変化が起きているのでしょうか。また長期的に見たときにインドの人的資本はどれほど重要な存在になっていくとお考えになりますか。
Sure. So obviously, I mean, the Indian IT industry has also been evolving a lot. So it's no longer the way it was, let's say, 20 years back. So you're already seeing that AI is getting embedded into many of the things that the Indian software engineers are delivering today. Right. I mean, whether it is coding or document processing or automation of workflows or even kind of newer stuff like cloud and all of that. So you're seeing that it is getting implemented very rapidly by these Indian IT companies. Okay, and this is not just about the Indian IT companies, it's also about the Indian startups who are serving the Indian economy itself. They're also embedding AI into their workflows, and they're seeing very exciting startups coming into this space. And also, if the human, you asked about the human kind of reskilling, right? So human reskilling, again, India obviously has a very large population of STEM graduates, as you mentioned, but even if in terms of the semiconductor design, for example, 20% of the global population of semiconductor designers is actually in India. Okay, and they are being set up by the global companies. They're having their R&D offices in India, and they are doing this research sitting in India out there. Okay, and even the government is very cognizant that they need to be moving towards it. For example, the Education Board of India has recently started a policy by which students from grade 6 onwards, we're talking about kids who are like 11, 12 years old, they will be taught AI. I mean, taught AI not in the sense of just on how to use AI, but actually how AI works. Because that is how they will learn. And you can just imagine when these kids are learning from that very age, when they become adults in future, they'll be so much more AI enabled that they will do wonders when they come to the job market.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you. インド市場は値動きのとはいえ非常に大きい市場でもあります。いろいろとお話を伺ってきた中ですね、とはいえ長期投資家はそうした値動きの荒さ、つまりボラティリティとどのように向き合うべきでしょうか。
Yeah, I know investors can become a little bit uneasy with volatility. I mean, even what about investors? I mean, even our risk team would be uneasy with volatility. Okay, so that is very natural. But we long-term investors actually welcome volatility. Okay, we think volatility is an opportunity. Okay, why? Because it allows you to buy great businesses at better prices. Okay, I mean, if there's no volatility, if the stock prices were always to go linearly up, then you can never buy things cheap. But only when they fall is when you get that opportunity. And if you are a disciplined investor who knows what you're looking for in terms of the quality of the business, and if you know what price you want to buy it at, then these swings actually give you the right opportunity to actually deploy money at better prices. Okay, so this is how we think about volatility. We are not afraid of it. We actually welcome it. And if you think about India, the good news is that the story is not broken. It is not like the Indian economy is going down. Okay, it's still growing at 6% plus. The earnings growth in India, it's more than double digits. Okay, so it is not like anything is broken out there, which means that it's still a very good quality asset class to own. Okay, and you are just getting it cheaper. Okay, that's how I would portray it.
I see. もし今後10年、あるいは20年という長期でインドに投資を続けるとしたら、最も重視すべきポイントというのはどういった点になるでしょうか？
Sure. So see, if you were to think that long term, like 10, 20 years, the biggest thing becomes that your compounding will make you most of the money. Okay? It's not your starting valuation, end valuation, whatever. It's more about how much time you have put into that asset class.
Right.
That is what will determine your ultimate returns. Okay? And therefore, patience is very important.
Right.
If you become nervous with the volatility of the market, then you will end up throwing away your good assets at very wrong time. You'll also maybe start buying asset at the very wrong time in an exuberance or euphoria type of a moment. So it's patience which will actually win you the game here. Obviously, it will be uncomfortable. The corrections would feel, oh my God, have I done something wrong? Did I make a wrong choice? Should I not have invested? Maybe it's still time for me to run away. So you would obviously have those thoughts. That's very natural to have, right? But if you were to have more discipline and think about, okay, have fundamentals really changed? And if they're still the same, and it's just the price has become cheaper, then it's actually more attractive place to be invested in now. And therefore, I still look forward to those long-term compounding gains in the next 10 to 20 years.
最後にここまで様々なお話を伺ってきましたが、それでもなお長期的にインドに強気でいられる最大の理由は何でしょうか？
Sure. So I could obviously name few factors and which would probably be known to your audience also. That things like young population, things like high economic growth, productivity increasing, corporates earnings growth, all of those are valid, right? But I would say the thing which gives me strongest conviction is actually when I go to India and I meet people there. So like, for example, I'm going to India right after this trip to Japan. I'll be there for a couple of weeks and I'll be meeting people there. And when I meet people there, I see that hunger in them. I see that dynamism in them. They want to grow and they want to do things differently. The startups there, the entrepreneurs there. I mean, the look in their eyes shows me that this is the country which is going to go far, far higher than where it is today. And that, I think, gives me the strongest conviction. I mean, you can name any other factor, but that people side of things gives me the strongest conviction that this is the story to back. I mean, it's very similar to, let's say, if you were to go to China 20 years back and you'll see the dynamism in that country.
Energy that comes
energy,
from the country.
That energy you feel in India also today. And that is what gives you that conviction for the future. So the message to your investors putting money into these NISA plans is very simple, that you have actually chosen a very good asset class because it is going to give you very good long-term compounding. And second, you have actually chosen a very right vehicle to invest into it because you're putting money every month in a very disciplined, systematic way. It's actually helping you achieve a very low kind of average cost of investment. And that is what will help you achieve much better returns than what the market will provide. So yes, great choice, great decision. Just stick to it. I think what is key is patience and discipline here. If you move out at the wrong time, if you lose patience, then obviously you'll not make those returns that India is going to provide you in the next 10 to 20 years.
最後にもう一つお伺いしたいのですが、どうしても日本の投資家の皆さんはアメリカへの投資というのも非常に興味を持っている方も多い中で、アメリカなのかインドなのかと、0か100かで結構考える方も多いんですが、分散投資という観点でインドへの投資について、考えていく場合にですね、ちょっとこのあたりについてもヒントをお聞かせいただけないでしょうか。
Surely. I mean, see, diversification is obviously very important for a global investor. And Japanese investors have been global investors for a long time, so probably they appreciate it much more than I do. Okay. What I can say is that Indian asset class has become very different versus what it used to be. And it's also very different versus the rest of the countries that you look around. I mean, most of these markets are being driven just by one theme, which is AI. And whether it is US or Japan or Korea or Taiwan, it's all about AI. India is very different. India is all about more domestic economy, more about consumption, more about like healthcare. We spoke about financial, healthcare, all those themes, right? So it's a very, very different type of a thematic that you are getting with India. And that is what true diversification means. It is not, I mean, if you were to, let's say, take money out of US, put it into Korea or Taiwan, it's not actually diversification. It's actually going after the same thematic again. right? So if you have to do a true diversification of your portfolios, then you will look for opportunities which would behave differently in different phases of the market. So let's say, I don't know, again, I'm no expert to tell you whether AI euphoria will end or not, or when will it end, but as in when it does, obviously India will stand out as a better diversifier. And that is how I would advise your investors to also kind of look at India, that maybe a small part of their allocation should be towards this more diversified type of a thematic compared to all other kind of equity markets, which are just running on one single engine.
Right. So can you say that the Indian market itself is diversified?
Yes. So that is another beauty of the Indian market, that it is not just one single sector or theme which is driving it. I mean, again, if you have to look at many emerging markets, many of them are like, either running on oil or running on, the hottest commodity obviously is the memory chips, right? So it is a market which is having a lot of diversity in terms of its own composition. So a lot of sectors like financials, healthcare, you have technology, consumption, materials, energy. I mean, you have all these sectors represented properly in the Indian market. And therefore, when an investor is going there, it's not like if one theme collapses, then the entire market will collapse. Okay. I mean, even if one theme does not do well, there'll be many other themes which might have done well to provide you good aggregate return.
I see. Well, thank you very much for that information. I think that really helps the investors as well. Thank you so much today.
Thank you very much.